Doug Coleman heads up the Nature Center here at Wintergreen. Wintergreen has been in existence since the early 1960s, and Doug has agreed to give us some insight into this property's history. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, because this is going to be an interesting history lesson.
Wintergreen's visionaries in the late 60s, late 1960s, who began to think about this as a place for recreation. We're very interested in the nature of Wintergreen. As a matter of fact, when they first started, it was all they had to sell. They had no amenities. But the nature of this place was so special that it commanded attention. And it's very interesting that one of the original founders, Don Faulkner, worked with a man named Jim Wheat from Richmond, who later went on to form Wheat First Securities. Well, Don was a dreamer. Jim Wheat was blind. And so we had a dreamer and a gentleman who was blind, who probably had greater vision than anyone around him. So Wintergreen started out in the right direction. They knew they had a huge piece of land that whose boundaries had remained intact since 1796, and they knew that it was unique, and you have to understand that this was before all the environmental requirements were there. They recognized its uniqueness, and the planners and the developers that followed developed this place in such a manner that kept a commitment to keep over half of it undisturbed, and that commitment's been kept.
So all of these represent this is early settlement history in here. We would have been standing in Goochland County, which extends all the way to Richmond. And then in 1744, Nelson would have been part of Big Albemarle County. And then in 1761, Nelson would have been part of Big Amherst County. And in 1807, Nelson became a county.
Nelson County, which is the county Wintergreen resides in, is a very unique county. It was very undeveloped in the years before Wintergreen. But within this county, there is an incredibly unique cultural history as well. Jefferson, in his escape from Tarleton, came right across Nelson County. Nelson County has produced at least one governor. It's associated with Patrick Henry, with the Cabell Foundation, and the Cabell family. So it's very unique. Of course, people that were important in the ratification of the U.S. Constitution lived here. Emissaries that worked with George Washington and crossed with him at Valley Forge were here. The Blue Ridge, a subset of the Appalachians, gets wider north and south of here, but in the 11,000 acres of the Wintergreen community, it narrows down to a single ridge wide. This means that as the hawks migrate, they funnel into one ridge, and thousands of them fly along the ridge line here. It means that small animals that we wouldn't think of, like the salamanders and some of the insects that are on the ground, have a very limited corridor that they can travel through. And perhaps most importantly, the ecosystem, including the plant community, is extremely unique, with plants like ferns that are 500 to 1,000 years old, and lilies and orchids that are all part of an ancient forest floor that at Wintergreen is a very narrow corridor. So it's incumbent on us to maintain the special attributes of this place. One of the interesting pieces that sort of validates Wintergreen being here is the prehistory of the place. As we said, you know, the mountain is one ridge wide here, so it's always been a crossing point. And Wintergreen spent a lot of time and money planning where the mountain center would be. Well, archaeological work that was subsequently done shows that man's been in that spot for 10,000 years. There are over 100 archaeological sites right in this immediate area, very near where Wintergreen chose to develop. So, man's chosen this spot for 10,000 years.